The body in the blinding blizzard. The wind screamed like a wild beast. Snow fell fast and thick, covering everything on the frozen planet called Zinara. A tall human man walked alone through the white world. His name was Jace Kellen, a scout from Earth. He wore a heavy survival suit with heat panels, but even that couldn't stop the cold from biting into his bones. Jace had lost his drone during a scan of the area. He followed its signal through the storm, using his visor to see through the blizzard. It was supposed to be a quiet mission, just gather data and return. But Zinara had different plans today. Suddenly the drone's signal went dead. Just like that, gone. Jace frowned. He looked around. There was nothing but snow. Then something caught his eye. A faint light. Blue. Glowing. He narrowed his eyes and pushed forward, forcing his way through the wind. As he got closer, the light became clearer. A figure lying in the snow. His heart skipped a beat. It was a person. No, not a person. It was an alien girl. She was collapsed face first in the snow, wearing strange armor that looked broken and burnt. Her skin was pale violet and glowing patterns shimmered faintly across her arms. Long white hair blew in the wind. Her body wasn't moving. Jace ran to her and dropped to his knees. "Hey, can you hear me?" He shouted over the wind. She didn't respond. He checked for a pulse, weak but there. She was alive, barely. Her lips were blue and ice crystals clung to her eyelashes. Without thinking, Jace pulled out his emergency blanket and wrapped it around her. He activated his heat beacon and set it in the snow beside them. A soft red light glowed around them, pushing the cold back a little. "Hang in there," Jace whispered. "You're not dying out here. Not tonight." He lifted her gently and carried her toward a nearby rock formation that offered shelter. The snow beat against him the whole way, but he didn't stop. The girl was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. Once inside the shallow cave, Jace sealed the opening with a collapsible thermal sheet. It wasn't perfect, but it would hold off the worst of the wind. He placed the girl on a heat mat and turned on a second warmer. Her fingers twitched. "Hey," Jace said softly, kneeling beside her. "Can you hear me now?" The alien girl's eyes opened, barely. They were large, silver, and glowing with a soft light. Her lips moved and she whispered a word, but he couldn't understand it. Then she passed out again. Jace looked at her closely. She had strange marks on her neck, like someone had branded her with a hot iron. His jaw tightened. Whoever she was, someone had tried to erase her, kill her. But she was still breathing. He sat beside her, fed more power into the heaters, and stared into the cold. Night outside, the wind howled. Snow continued to fall, hiding all signs of life. Inside the cave, two different worlds were now connected. A human who came to scan an alien world, and an alien girl who had collapsed in the snow, possibly left to die. But why? And who had left her? Jace didn't know the answers yet, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't leaving her. Not until the storm passed. Not until dawn. The cave was quiet, except for the faint sound of the alien girl breathing. Jace sat beside her, watching, her face closely. She was still pale, her lips dry, but her breathing had grown steadier. Her strange armor steamed as the heat mats worked, and the glowing lines on her arms pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Outside, the storm had not stopped. Winds howled across the ice like monsters crying out in the dark, but inside the shelter, the small red heat beacon gave them a circle of warmth. Jace kept feeding it battery power. He only had 2 cells left now. If the storm lasted too long, he would freeze too. But he didn't care. He had made a choice. Stay with her. Suddenly the girl stirred. Her eyes blinked open, silver and glowing, still filled with confusion. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "Water," she whispered in a rough alien accent. Jace reached into his pack and carefully poured warm liquid from his canister into a cup. He helped her sit up and brought the cup to her lips. She drank slowly, eyes never leaving his face. Where am I?" she asked softly. You're safe, Jace said gently. My name is Jace. I found you in the snow. Her gaze drifted to the entrance of the cave. They were going to kill me. Jace froze. Who? She didn't answer. Her eyes filled with fear, and her hands gripped the blanket around her tightly. He could tell she was still cold, but something else was shaking her from the inside. Terror. Then she suddenly winced. She touched her neck, the place where the burn mark was. Jace helped her lie back down. I don't know who you are, he said calmly, but I'm not going to let anyone hurt you, not while I'm alive. The girl looked at him again, her eyes full of doubt, but also hope. Why? She asked. Why do you care? Jace didn't know how to answer. Maybe it was the way she had collapsed, or the loneliness in her eyes, or maybe because, back on Earth, he had seen what happened when people walked away, and he had sworn never to do that again. Because no one should be left alone in a storm, he said. She nodded slowly. My name is Soraya. Jace smiled. Nice to meet you, Syria. Suddenly a sharp beeping sound came from his wrist device. Motion detected. Jace tapped the screen. It showed faint movement outside the cave. Several life forms. Slow. Heavy. Coming this way. He quickly turned off the heat beacon's outer light and covered it. The cave grew dark, with only the soft blue glow from Soraya's skin lighting their faces. What is it? She asked, sitting. Up in fear, Jace whispered. I think we're being watched. He grabbed his blaster from his belt and moved to the cave entrance. Carefully, he peeled back the thermal sheet and looked outside. Dark shapes moved in the storm. They were not animals. Their steps were too smooth, too organized. Jace's heart pounded. He pulled the sheet back into place and crouched beside Soraya. Do you know who they are? He asked. She swallowed hard. They're called the Varnak, hunters. Once they mark someone for death, they never stop. Jace now understood what she meant by they were going to kill me. The Varnak didn't forgive. And if they had tracked her here, they might already know she was with a human. He powered down all lights. Everything went dark. They sat in silence. The only sound was the wind outside and their breathing. Then, something scraped against the cave wall. Jace raised his blaster. He couldn't see much in the darkness, but he could feel it. Someone, was just outside. Soraya's hand suddenly touched his arm. Her eyes glowed brighter. She closed them and whispered in her language. Then she opened them again. They can't see us now, she said. I used a cloaking wave. Jace blinked. You did what? She gave a small smile. It's old magic. My people's secret. He didn't understand fully, but the motion sensor stopped beeping. Outside, the shapes began to fade away into the snow. Jace let out a long breath. For now, they were safe. But the danger was real, and whoever wanted Soraya dead wouldn't stop. He looked at her, still weak and trembling, but brave, and he knew one thing. He wouldn't leave her side. Not tonight, not ever. Morning came slowly. Outside the cave, the blizzard had faded into a soft, silent snowfall. The sky above the frozen world of Zinara turned a pale gray blue. But inside the cave, time felt frozen too. Soraya lay curled in the thermal blanket, her silver eyes slowly opening. She blinked, looking around, confused. Her body was still weak, but the warmth had returned to her limbs. Jace was sitting nearby, his blaster in hand, eyes scanning the motion detector on his wrist. He hadn't slept. When Syria moved, he turned toward her and smiled softly. You made it through the night, he said. She tried to sit up. Where am I? Jace leaned closer. We're still on Zinara. You collapsed in the snow. I found you. Soraya stared at him. Her expression was different now. Not just fear, but confusion. I don't remember, she whispered. I don't know why I was out there. You said something last night, Jace replied. That they were going to kill you. You called them the Varnak. Syria's face went pale. She reached up and touched her neck. The mark was still there, burned into her skin. A strange symbol, like a broken crown inside a circle. Jace had seen a lot in his years as a scout, but he had never seen a mark like that. She looked down at her hands. I don't know what this is. I don't know who I really am. Jace paused. You told me your name was Soraya. She blinked. I don't remember saying that. A heavy silence filled the cave. Then Jace stood and walked over to his pack. He pulled out a small reflective shard, a makeshift mirror, and handed it to her. Syria looked at herself. Her eyes widened. These markings, she whispered, tracing the glowing lines on her arms and cheeks. They weren't always like this. What do you mean? Jace asked. They're brighter, thicker. They feel alive. Jace sat back down. Maybe your powers are waking up. Soraya looked at him confused. What powers? He shrugged. Last night you said you used something called a cloaking wave to hide us from the Varnak. She shook her head. I don't remember doing that. Now Jace was concerned. Are you sure? He asked. Syria nodded slowly. I remember the snow, the pain, then your voice, and now this. She looked at her hands again. They trembled slightly. I feel like I'm missing something important. Like I'm supposed to be doing something, but I forgot what it was. Suddenly, a soft pulse lit up from her wrist. Soraya looked down and saw a strange bracelet she hadn't noticed before. It was made of metal and crystal, alien technology. The center glowed with a faint purple light. She tapped it. A small image appeared above it, a hologram. It showed a young girl, Soraya herself, kneeling before a tall alien figure in gold armor. The figure raised a staff, and the image flickered. Then came a voice. Soraya of the Bloodlight, by order of the tribunal you are exiled. If found beyond the outcast zone, you will be hunted, branded, executed. The hologram vanished. Soraya stared in silence. Jace spoke gently. Looks like you were royalty. She turned toward him, eyes wide. Bloodlight, that's a royal line. But why would they exile me? Jace shook his head. Maybe you broke their laws. Maybe you refused something. Whatever it was, they made you forget. Soraya stared into the fire, thinking hard. Someone wanted me out of the way. Someone powerful. Jace stood and walked toward the cave entrance. The snow's letting up. We need to move. The Varnak might come back. As he checked the horizon, Soraya followed him, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. What happens now? She asked. Jace looked at her and said, We find the truth. About who you are. About who wants you dead. But first, we stay alive. Soraya took a deep breath. The cold wind brushed against her face, but it didn't scare her now. She didn't have her full memory, she didn't have her full strength. But she had something else. Someone who stayed beside her when no one else would. Someone human. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start fighting back. Jace crouched low outside the cave, eyes scanning the soft white world. The storm was gone, but danger still hung in the air like cold smoke. Beside him, Soraya walked carefully. Her steps were light, quiet, almost like she floated just above the snow. She looked stronger than before, but still weak. The glow on her arms had dimmed to a soft pulse, like a heartbeat in sleep. Jace's motion scanner gave off a quiet ping. Stopped! Look, he whispered. In the snow just a few meters ahead were tracks, but not animal tracks. These were deep, wide footprints, too large to belong to Jace and too heavy for Soraya. They had sharp edges like armored boots, and they weren't fresh. There were 5 sets of them. Soraya's body tensed. Her fingers twitched, ready to reach for a weapon, though she didn't have one. The Varnak, she said softly. They were here, last night. Jace nodded. But they didn't find us. Not yet. He followed the tracks. They led in a half circle around the cave and then vanished into the trees. A strange forest of frozen blue vines and crystal-covered trunks. Everything sparkled under the weak light of the alien sun. Jace knelt by one of the prints and touched the edge. It was frozen solid. These aren't normal soldiers, he muttered. They were moving in formation, they were searching. For me, Soraya whispered. They won't stop. You know that, right? I know, he said, but I'm not letting them take you. Soraya turned to him. Her silver eyes were sharp now, not full of fear like before, but full of something else. Determination. I remember something, she said suddenly. Jace looked up. I was in a room, a high room with glass walls. I saw stars. I was crying. Someone stood behind me, a woman, tall, wearing silver armor. She said I had a choice, but when I said no, they marked me. Then, pain. She held her head. It's coming back, but in pieces, like broken glass. Jace stood and placed a hand on her shoulder. Then let's put the pieces back together. One step at a time. They walked through the forest, moving slowly, carefully. The snow was deep and the trees made eerie sounds in the wind like whispers from unseen mouths. Suddenly Jace stopped again. His scanner blinked red. Something was moving ahead, not large, not slow. It was fast, and circling them. Syria turned. Behind us. Jace spun around, gun raised, but there was nothing there. Then, crack, a blur shot out from the trees. Jace fell back, pulling Syria with him. A creature lunged from the shadows, not Varnak, but something else. It looked like a predator. 6 legs, crystal fangs, and armor plates across its back. A wild snow beast. Its eyes glowed yellow with hunger. Jace fired once, twice. The shots bounced off the creature's hide. Get behind me, he shouted, but Soraya stepped forward instead. She raised her hand, and the mark on her neck glowed. The snow under her feet shook. The creature paused. Its growl faded to a whimper. Soraya's voice changed. She spoke a word, an ancient word, and the glowing patterns on her arms lit up like fire. The beast backed away, then it ran. Jace stared at her. What was that? Soraya looked at her own hands. I don't know. It just happened. She looked frightened, but not of the beast. She was afraid of herself. Jace slowly walked over. Whatever that was, it saved us. She nodded, unsure. Then she looked at him and said, There's more. I can feel it. Powers buried inside me. Jace looked into the trees. Maybe someone buried them for a reason. They continued through the woods and stopped on a ridge. Below them lay a valley of ice. In the center was a broken ship, small, hidden under a layer of snow. Soraya gasped. I know that place, she said. I think I came from there. Jace scanned. It's not sending any signals, might be dead. No, she said, there's something inside. I remember hiding something there. She looked at him with wide eyes. A part of me. Jace looked at the ship, then back at Soraya. The Varnak were close, her powers were waking, and now, her memories were leading them into the unknown. But he didn't care how strange it got, he was in this now, completely, and he wouldn't turn back. The frozen valley was silent. Snow covered the crashed ship like a grave, its metal hull cracked and half buried under ice. A broken wing stuck out like a jagged bone. The symbol on its side, a spiral sun, was faded but still visible. Saria's eyes locked onto it. I remember that symbol, she whispered. It was my family's crest. Jace scanned the area carefully. No signs of movement, no heat signatures, let's move quick. The two made their way down the ridge, their boots crunching softly over snow and frost. The closer they got to the ship, the more Syria seemed pulled forward, like a magnet was drawing her toward something inside, Jace kept his blaster ready. His gut told him danger was near. The ship's door was jammed shut, half buried in a snowdrift. Jace used a heat cutter to slice through the frozen metal. The air inside smelled old and burned. They stepped into the dark corridor, light from Saria's glowing arms casting strange shadows on the walls. It was a small royal shuttle. Cracked screens, shattered glass, and frozen blood painted the hallways. Something bad had happened here. They reached the main chamber, a small round room with a glowing crystal pedestal in the center. Saria walked to it slowly. She placed her hand on the crystal. The room came alive. Lights flickered. Holograms danced above them. Strange music hummed through the walls. Then a voice echoed, Saria's own voice recorded long ago. If you're hearing this, they found out. The tribunal knows. They branded me. I'm running now, but I won't run forever. If anyone finds this, tell them the fire still burns, the bloodlight still lives. The message ended. Jace looked at Saria in shock. You recorded that? She nodded slowly, eyes wide. I don't remember doing it, but I believe it. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. A heavy thud echoed from outside. Then another. Jace froze. They found us. He ran to the ship's cracked window and looked out. Through the snow, dark armored figures marched toward the ship. Their eyes glowed red. The Varnak. There were at least 6 of them. Down! Jace shouted. A plasma blast slammed into the side of the ship, sending sparks and ice flying. Saria screamed and ducked behind the pedestal. Jace returned fire through a broken panel, but it barely slowed the hunters. They're trying to break in, Jace shouted. We're surrounded. Another blast hit the door. The ship shook. Then Saria stood. No more running, she said quietly. Jace turned to her. You're still weak. I don't care. If I keep running, they'll never stop. If I fight now, I choose what I become. The glow on her arms burst into flames of light. The brand on her neck lit up bright orange. Her hair rose slightly, floating as if caught in a breeze that wasn't there. She stepped forward and reached out to the crystal again. Energy surged through the ship. Outside, the Varnak paused. Their helmets scanned the sudden burst of power. Then one of them shouted a command. She's awakened. Terminate now. They stormed forward, but the ground beneath them cracked. The snow trembled. Blue lightning exploded from the ship's outer shell, forming a glowing shield. The first Varnak was thrown back into a tree. Another screamed as light burned through his armor. Inside, Saria cried out in pain. Jace caught her before she collapsed. Too much, she gasped. I can't. Hold it. He placed her hand on his chest. You're not alone. Her eyes widened. The light calmed. The shield held. Outside, the Varnak regrouped, but they hesitated now. Their easy target had become a burning mystery. Inside the ship, Saria lay against Jace, breathing hard. I remember now, she said weakly. Why they marked me. I refused the bonding. Jace blinked. What bonding? They wanted to force me to join with the High Lord's son, to merge powers, to give them control of my bloodline. I said no. She looked at Jace with tired but fiery eyes. They called me a traitor, but I'm not. I just wanted to be free. Jace nodded. And now you are? The ground outside rumbled again. More Varnak were arriving. Jace stood. This ship can't hold them forever, but I'll fight to the last breath. Saria took his hand. Then I'll fight with you. They stood together, human and alien, inside a broken ship under an alien sky, as enemies closed in. But they weren't just survivors anymore. They were fighters, and together, they were fire. The ship groaned under pressure as snow and fire raged outside. The Varnak soldiers surrounded the wreck. More had arrived. Black armor, red visors, weapons glowing hot. The shield Saria had created was cracking now, thin lines of light stretching like veins in glass. Inside, the energy core of the ship flickered. Jace knelt beside Saria. Her body shook. Her skin, once glowing, had faded to a dull gray blue. She was burning from inside, not from heat, but from power she couldn't control. Soraya, stay with me, Jace whispered. Her lips moved. It's too much. I can't hold it anymore. You're not alone, he said again. Whatever they did to you, whatever they took, we'll get it back. Then something strange happened. The burn mark on her neck changed color, from orange to white, and the light began to spread, not in wild flashes like before, but steady, focused. Jace reached out and took her hand. The moment their skin touched, the energy in the room shifted. Her heartbeat synced with his. The ship's dying system suddenly lit up again. The flickering lights became steady. The broken monitors showed. Glowing symbols, the hologram crystal flared bright. A word appeared across the main screen. Soul bond confirmed. Jace stared at it. What the hell is that? Syria's breathing calmed. She opened her eyes. I know this. It's the highest connection my kind can make. A soul bond. It's not chosen by us. It's chosen by the stars. But how? Jace asked. Syria smiled softly. You didn't leave me. You stayed. Even when I was nothing, you gave me light. Outside, the Varnak leader raised a heavy plasma cannon. Ready the breach? A soldier asked. Commander, the shields. Strengthening. Should we retreat? The leader growled. No, if she completes the bond, we lose everything. Fire. The cannon blasted the side of the ship. The shield wavered, but did not break. Inside, Jace helped Soraya to her feet. We don't have much time, he said. What does this bond mean? Can it help us fight? She looked at him with glowing eyes. Silver, sharp, no longer afraid. It means we are one now. She stepped toward the core crystal again and placed her hand on it. This time, Jace placed his hand beside hers. The light exploded outward. The cracked walls glowed blue. The shield outside grew into a dome of solid energy. The Varnak fired again, but the blasts bounced off harmlessly. The leader screamed in rage. She activated it. Inside, Soraya's voice echoed with strength. I remember now. My powers were locked, tied to pain and fear, but the bond freed them. You gave me the key. Her hands lifted slowly, and the glowing lines along her arms expanded, reaching across her back. Wings of energy spread out behind her, made of pure starlight. Jace stepped back in awe. You look like a goddess. She smiled gently. I was a prisoner. Now I'm a queen. Then the ground shook. The ship's core released a pulse that knocked every Varnak soldier backward. Ice cracked across the valley. The storm clouds above cleared, revealing the twin suns of Zinara, and in that golden light, Soraya rose above the ship, floating effortlessly. She looked down at the Varnak. You hunted me, burned me, marked me, but I survived. And I found someone who didn't run. Her voice thundered through the air, carried by the bond. Jace stood on the ship, looking up at her. His heart was racing, but not from fear, from something deeper. Pride, respect, connection. The Varnak opened fire, one last desperate attack, but Soraya raised her hand, and the blasts vanished in midair. She flicked her wrist. The energy around her shot outward, blasting the attackers. Off their feet, their weapons melted, their armor cracked. The commander staggered back. No, it's impossible. A soul bond can't form with a human. Soraya landed softly beside Jace. Then rewrite your laws. He held out her old blade, found in the wreckage. You dropped this, Jace said. She took it and smiled. Let's finish this. Together they walked toward the remaining soldiers. They didn't need to say anything more. They were already connected. By choice, by destiny, and by fire. The sky above Zinara was no longer gray. Twin suns rose slowly, painting the icy horizon in gold and rose. Light sparkled across the frozen valley like diamonds, but the ground still trembled with the aftershocks of war. Smoke rose from scorched snow. The Varnak forces were broken. Most had fled. Only their leader remained, on one knee, helmet cracked, blade dug into the ground for balance. He looked up at the two figures standing above him, a human with calm fire in his eyes, and an alien girl who now glowed like a living star. Syria's long white hair danced in the cold wind. Her soul bond with Jace had changed everything. She wasn't the weak, frozen girl from the storm anymore. She had become what the Varnak feared most, a queen who chose her own fate. "You were warned," the Varnak commander hissed. "A soul bond is forbidden, especially with a human. You will be hunted until the stars themselves burn." Syria stepped closer. Her blade hovered just above his shoulder. "I've been hunted before," she said quietly. "But now I remember who I am, and I'm not alone anymore." The Varnak commander spat blood. "You won't survive." Jace stepped forward, voice calm. "Then tell the galaxy what you saw here today." The commander looked up, and for the first time, there was fear in his alien eyes. Syria turned away. "Let him crawl back to his masters. Let them know the Bloodlight line is not dead. It just found something stronger than their control." The commander vanished into the snow. Jace and Syria stood in silence. The ship behind them hissed as power slowly faded. The protective dome collapsed now that the danger had passed. Ice cracked underfoot, but the valley felt peaceful. Jace looked at Syria. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "Tired, but something inside me feels whole now." She looked at him. "It's strange. I never believed the soul bond was real. We were taught it was just a myth, a story to keep dreamers busy." Jace smiled. "Guess we're dreamers then." She laughed softly. "Guess we are." He offered her his hand. "Come on, let's get away from this place. Find a better one." She looked around. The ship was dying. Her people had betrayed her. The world she once called home had turned cold. But then she looked at him. This strange, stubborn human who had stayed beside her in the snow, held her through her pain, and shared power with her when she thought she had none. She took his hand. Together, they climbed the ridge where it all began. From the top they could see everything: the broken ship, the melted battlefield, and in the distance a horizon filled with light and promise. Syria leaned against him. "I don't know where this bond leads," she said, "but I'm not afraid anymore." Jace wrapped an arm around her shoulder. "Wherever it goes," he said, "we go together." For a moment the wind was still. The suns rose fully over Zinara, casting their first warm light across the world. It touched the snow, the ice, the blood, and the scars left behind. But it also touched something new. Two figures walking side by side, not as prisoner and rescuer, not as human and alien, but as something more, as soul bonded, as partners, as a spark that could change the galaxy.